Reduction of camphor. Start by weighing out 0.1 grams of camphor in a 25 milliliters or 10 milliliters Erlenmeyer flask. After you weigh out your camphor, measure 0.5 milliliters of methanol in a graduated cylinder and add this on your camphor to dissolve it. Next, cautiously add 0.06 grams of sodium borohydride to this solution. Use the help of a spatula to add it in portions. Make sure to not let the flask temperature get above room temperature. If you feel the temperature increasing, rest your flask in an ice bath for a couple of minutes to decrease its temperature and then continue adding your borohydride. After adding everything and mixing them thoroughly, put your flask on a heating plate. Gently boil. Make sure to observe the reaction to not let all the contents evaporate. Add 0.5 milliliters of ethanol if you see the contents decreasing too much. We see the boiling has started with the presence of bubbling. Make sure to clamp your setup so that it does not roll over. After 3 minutes of boiling, take your flask off the heating plate and let it cool to room temperature. After it cools to room temperature, carefully add 4 milliliters of ice water that you have cooled in an ice bath previously. Add your water in portions. As you add water, you will see the formation of a white solid precipitate in your reaction flask. Collect this solid by using suction filter. The Hirsch funnel setup is the same as was used in all the previous experiments. If there is any of the white precipitate left in your flask, add a little bit more ice water to collect this solid and wash the flask. After you have collected your solid, let air run through it for 5 to 10 minutes to dry it properly. Then collect this solid into another Erlenmeyer flask that is completely dry with the help of a spatula. In this flask, add 5 milliliters of diethyl ether to dissolve the product. Then, on top of this, add some anhydrous sodium sulfide to dry this ethereal solution. Adding anhydrous sodium sulfate will dry out any water that might have remained in this mixture. Add your drying agent until you see some free-floating particles that are not clumped up with the rest of the clumped solid at the bottom. Then, separate your ethereal solution from the solid with the help of a pipette into another beaker. Make sure the beaker is completely dry. In order to collect more of the product, you may add more ether solution in the flask and collect it into the beaker. In order to dry out the ether and collect your final product, you may either leave it inside the hood to let the diethyl ether dry, or you may use the help of air outlet present in the hoods. You may connect a hose to the air outlet and then gently use this to dry your ether solution faster. You can see your final product as the white crystals on the walls and bottom of your beaker. For the analysis of your product, you will be performing melting point, weight determination, and infrared spectrum collection. To collect this infrared spectrum, you will be adding some of this on the crystal part of your sample holder on the IR spectroscopy device and put a small piece of paper on top of it and screw the top and perform the measurement.